At 10:06 a.m. on December 20th, my phone lights with a calendar alert I didn't make. The title is Martine Family Christmas, the location is my address, and the organizer is Aunt Deb. The invite says 2 p.m., midnight. The description reads, potluck. Alex will handle the main meal plus dessert. Everyone else bring holiday spirit. Kids welcome. There's a winking emoji. There is no line that says, "Is this okay with you?" The scent in my apartment is coffee and orange peel. I've just zested a clementine into yogurt because I'm trying to be gentle with myself in small, dumb ways. On the counter, a Post-it with my plan for the 25th in neat navy ink. Call Ray, long run, 1 roasted chicken, bread practice, score ×3, movie, early bed. A day shaped like rest. The group chat, the misnamed Fam Jam, starts pinging like a slot machine that finally pays out. Green bubbles, blue bubbles, confetti reactions that feel like trespass. Aunt Deb. We're set for Alex's at 2 on the 25th. Everyone saw the invite? Mom. Yay! The house is so cozy now that Alex did it up. Dad. I'll bring folding chairs. Cousin Vanessa. We'll come straight from church. No time to cook. Long service. So excited. Tyler. On my way with vibes. Uncle Pete. I'll bring ice. Grandma, from Mom's phone. I need a soft chair and hot tea. Only ice. Only vibes. Only the folding chairs currently folded in my parents' garage an hour away. I type, erase, type again. Hey all, I didn't agree to host. I already have plans. 3 dots appear. Pause. Vanish. Aunt Deb. Don't be difficult. We already told everyone. Mom. Honey, you're so good at hosting. It's your gift. Dad. This is family. We stick together. Tyler. I put vibes in the sign-up, lol. Good at hosting. Their code for, you'll buy, prep, serve, and clean while we applaud the magic. I screenshot the invite. I print it, black and white, and magnet it to the fridge next to my small grocery list. Chicken, onions, carrots, rosemary. The cheap toner makes my address look like a police report. Evidence. I call Aunt Deb. She doesn't pick up. I call Mom. She does. Hi, honey, she sings. I hear clinks, the particular sound of someone arranging other people's time like glassware. You saw Deb's invite? I saw a decision. Oh, don't make this about control, she says, sighing with the practiced fatigue of martyrs. We're under a lot of stress. Your father's hours got cut. The house is a mess with the remodel. It's just more convenient at your place. Convenient for who? For family, she says. Their code for the people asking for favors. I'm not hosting Christmas, I say. My voice is calm. My lungs are steady. I didn't agree. I have plans. You're being selfish, she says. It's 1 day. Your apartment is perfect. You've always loved making memories. Memories. They're code for unpaid labor. We rebrand as love. I'm not doing it, I say, and hang up before the old reflex to apologize wakes up in my throat. At 11:13 a.m., the calendar alert changes. Organizer, Aunt Deb. Event updated. The description updates too. Alex has graciously agreed to host. My chest gets that cold, spreading feeling like someone poured water into my sweater. I reply in the event comments where everyone can see it. I have not agreed to host. The event at my apartment is canceled. 3 new events pop up within minutes. Christmas at Alex's, alt. Xmas at Alex's. Take 2, Martine Christmas, final. All with my address. It's not a mistake. It's a siege. Ray calls. You sound like a person who needs me to say the line. Say it, I say, forehead on the cool cabinet door. An invitation is a question, not an assignment. Her voice is a warm, dry hand. She's said it enough I should have engraved it somewhere obvious. I look at my post-it with its small plans. My small plans are suddenly the only plans that make sense. At 1:27 p.m., I walk to the neighborhood bakery. I buy a bag of flour and a banneton because the lady with the flour-dusted braids says it's on sale, and why not? The bell on the door rings like a yes. I sign up for their January bread workshop because I like how the words bulk ferment feel in my mouth. Patient. Inevitable. Dependent on alignment more than force. On the way back, I pass the bodega. Mr. Rivas is setting a pyramid of tangerines like a cathedral dome. Holiday drama? He asks, reading the weather off my face. They scheduled Christmas at my place without telling me, I say. Then said I'd agreed. I didn't. He replaces a tangerine. Doesn't look up. A good host sets a table, he says. A better one knows when to fold it up. I laugh, a short breath. I'm folding? He nods as if I've chosen the right brand of rice. Need me to put a sign on your door that says closed? No, I say. I'll put it there myself. Back home, I tape a note inside my door. Closed for Christmas. See you soon. It's for me, not them. On the 24th, the chat stays quiet except for a single message from Aunt Deb at 9:02 p.m. We're excited. We'll be there at 1:45 to set up. The calm in me is not sarcasm. It's a decision that isn't sliding around anymore. The 25th starts at 7:06 a.m. with a run along the river. The cold air hurts my teeth. The sun is a bright coin in a gray pocket. I make coffee. I put on a movie. I take out flour and water and salt. I measure, not because I need to, but because exactness calms me. 500 grams flour, 350 grams water, 10 grams salt, a spoon of starter from the jar that smells like apples and a patient barn. The dough feels tacky, then smooth as it tightens under my hands. I fold it over itself and watch it relax. I set a bowl over it. It rises without my attention. There's a lesson in that I'm not ready to write down yet. At 1:47 p.m., the first knock. Quick, enthusiastic. A knock that assumes entry. Then the sound of keys. My parents have an old spare from last year, before I changed my locks. The knob resists. I changed them in February and didn't tell anyone. The knock again, louder. Alex! Open up, we're early to help. Aunt Deb's voice, bright and bossy. I don't get up. I'm in socks and an old sweatshirt. The dough rests under its bowl. The oven preheats to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, waiting for the loaf I'll bake just for me. Alex! Mom this time, the thin whine threaded through her Christmas tone. Your grandma needs to sit. I walk to the door. I speak through it, calm. Hi, Merry Christmas. I'm not hosting. Silence. Then laughter with an edge. Oh, stop, Aunt Deb says. We brought Tupperware. I'm not hosting, I repeat. I didn't agree to host. There's no food here for 20 people. There are no chairs. There's no room. You're making a scene, Mom hisses, as if the hallway could publish us. Don't embarrass us. Your cousins are hungry. Hungry. Their code for your labor will save us from our poor planning. I unlock the top chain, but not the deadbolt. Open the door the width of a palm. They crowd the gap. Coats, scarves, the smell of cold and wool and other people's kitchens. Empty hands. Not even Uncle Pete's ice. Where should we put Grandma? Mom asks, pushing at the door with the body of her question. Back in your car, I say, and I keep my voice soft because I don't want to hear it later as a reason. There's a grocery store on Maple open till 4. If everyone picks a dish and buys and cooks it in their own home, you can eat by 6. Or you can go to Gino's. Or you can go to Vanessa's. Those are options. Aunt Deb blinks, then laughs the laugh she uses when she's already deciding where your furniture goes. Don't be ridiculous, we're here. We'll just order takeout. Do you have plates, utensils, a pot? Where's your turkey? We need to get it in now. There is no turkey, I say. And my kitchen is closed. I'm about to bake one loaf of bread. That's my plan. Mom's eyes shine the way people say diamonds do when they cost you more than they look. You're breaking your grandmother's heart, she says, dipping into her gift bag of lines. Grandma can have the couch while I call her a car to wherever she actually wants to be, I say. She doesn't have to stand in the hall. I want tea, Grandma says faintly from the back, because she always wants tea. There's a cafe downstairs, I say. I'll meet you there with a seat. And I'll buy her tea. You can't be serious, Aunt Deb says. We've already told everyone. We've told the children. Telling people a thing doesn't make it true. Dad's voice from the back, iron and pride. Your mother's blood pressure is through the roof. Open the door. Don't be legalistic. Don't be difficult. Don't be selfish. Don't make a scene. The old rules line up like choir members in sensible shoes. No, I say, and close the door to a 2-inch gap that says, I was here. I listened. I answered. Someone mutters something about calling the building. Someone else says, ungrateful. There's shuffling. The elevator ding punctuates the hallway like reluctant applause. Footsteps recede. My hand shakes a little once the lock is turned. I wait until the quiet is full again. I text Ray. They came. Hungry. Empty-handed. I said no. I offered tea. I'm shaking. Ray. Proud of you. Meet me at 3 at Mr. Rivas's. We'll buy all their ice. Ray, a beat later. Kidding. Mostly. I slide the dough onto the floured counter. I score it with the knife I sharpened last week. It blooms in the oven with a sound like a quiet yes. When I lift the lid of the Dutch oven, steam fogs my glasses. I lean into the cloud and laugh, a little startled at the sound. I place the loaf on a rack and listen to it sing, tiny cracks settling into themselves. At 3:06, I carry a slice down to Mr. Rivas in a paper bag. His bell rings for me again. He breaks the bread with the care of someone who knows what an hour costs. A good crumb, he says, nodding at the open holes like windows. Thank you for the sign, I say. He taps his temple. Good hosts know when to fold. Better guests ask whether the table is even there. At 4:30, I take Grandma tea in the cafe downstairs. She sips it like a bird. She looks smaller than I remember from last year. They tell me where to be, she says, not accusatory, just describing weather. I go where the warm is. She pats my hand. You look steady. I feel like gelatin, I say. Gelatin sets, she says, lips quirking. If you don't poke it. I walk her to the car. I call her a ride that doesn't require the rest of them. I tip the driver too much because the small reflex to fix things isn't evil. It just needs discipline. Back upstairs, my apartment smells like toast and citrus. I put butter on a heel of bread. I text the group thread. I hope you all eat something good today. I'm not available for hosting. I mute it for 8 hours. I put the printed calendar invite into a folder marked Receipts because I know how the weather moves. At 8:17 p.m., Ray arrives with peppermint bark and a deck of cards. We play 3 games of gin rummy. She wins 2 and doesn't gloat. At 10:44 p.m., I'm in bed under a blanket that smells like laundry. The building hums. The night is quiet. The gelatin sets. January is a month shaped like proofing dough. Quadrants of rest and stretch, touch and leave alone. I add a 6:15 a.m. therapy appointment on Tuesdays, Dr. Nair again, Lemon Furniture Office, A small table with a bowl of blue marbles for hands that need something to do. I take one marble 1 week and keep it. I like the weight of it in my pocket. It reminds me not to explain myself to people who are asking the wrong question. How did the day itself feel? She asks. Like I finally believed my door was mine, I say. And then like I was going to throw up. She nods. Boundaries don't remove stress, they allocate it. You chose to feel your stress rather than disperse it into a room of 20. I roll the marble. I thought if I was kind, people wouldn't press like that. Kindness is not consent, she says, in invitations or in kitchens. I go to the bakery on Saturdays. Flour drifts in that room like something alive. We learn to mix and leave alone. We learn to do 4-corner folds. We learn that heat transforms water without asking permission. The instructor, a woman in a blue apron with flour in her hair, says, "Stop poking it. Let time do its job." Ray comes to the 3rd class with me. Her dough looks like a pillow that slept well. Mine tears once, then holds. We carry our loaves home like pets that don't need much. Work steadies me. The winter project is a library edition with heavy timber framing. Joints matter. Mortise, tenon, drawbore pins. What holds is the quiet part the public doesn't see. We choose kiln-dried oak because it moves less than green. You learn the wood before you cut it. When I tell Greg I'm rerunning the lateral load calcs because I don't like how the atrium behaves past the 75th percentile, he says, "Good eye," in a way that doesn't sound surprised. It feels like someone set a chair for me without making a speech about it. At home, I buy a small, heavy Dutch oven for bread because the borrowed one from Ray's cupboard feels like a favor that has lasted too long. The box arrives with a squeak of tape and a weight that says this is not a toy. I run my hand along the enamel like you would a good desk, testing the promise. I hang a whiteboard by the door. At the top, I write yes and no. Under yes, Ray brunch, bread class, therapist, grandma tea. Under no, group chat demands, unannounced arrive and eat, ambush conversations. The act of writing them, ink on white space, makes the house feel like it got a new beam. At the end of January, Aunt Deb calls. I let it go to voicemail because I'm stirring onions in butter. Slow, patient, low heat. Her message is 3 minutes long and contains 12 sentences that begin with, "You. You embarrassed us. You made us look bad. You turned Christmas into drama. You made Grandma walk in the cold. You don't understand how hard everyone has it. Not one line says we. Not one line says I." I save it to the folder. Receipts is a real folder on a shelf beside the cookbooks. Inside, the printed calendar invite with my address, screenshots of event updates, the text transcript from Aunt Deb, a photo of my taped sign that said closed for Christmas. Ray says, "When's your confrontation scene?" Like we're storyboarding a documentary not about my life, and I say, "Not a scene, conditions," which is the same thing, just set like a table instead of a stage. I book the back room at Gino's, the same neutral ground where numbers outrank tone. I send a message to the thread. Family discussion for all adults. Sunday, February 12th, 2 p.m., Gino's back room. If voices rise, we reschedule. If anyone arrives with a surprise guest, we reschedule. If anyone records, we leave. Tyler replies, "LOL, and then I'll come." Mom, do we have to? Dad, we can do this at our house. Family business is family business. Me, neutral ground or not at all. Aunt Deb, I'm not driving across town for your rules. Me, then don't. At the bakery a week before the meeting, our instructor shows us scoring patterns. It's like punctuation, she says, drawing a leaf on the dough with a razor. You're telling the loaf where to open. I practice 1 clean slash and 2 small ones. The loaf opens where I tell it. The oven spring is modest but proud. The crust sings. Ray smacks my shoulder with the back of her hand. Look at her, bossing her bread. On Friday night, I sit at my table with a pen and a sheet of paper. I write terms for hosting like a contract between grown adults. It's not a trick. It's a translation. Hosting is by request and acceptance, not assumption. Shared contributions, food, cleanup, costs, estimate provided ahead. Assignments clarified by sign-up. If you don't sign up, you don't show up. Arrive only within the window. Leave on time. No ambush conversations or outnumbering. If any of this is too hard, we meet in restaurants or parks where structure exists. I look at the paper until it stops feeling mean and starts feeling like a blueprint. It doesn't make the house bigger. It makes it stand. On Sunday, Gino's smells like dough and oregano. The back room hums with the heater's patient old lungs. Ray sits beside me, her Coke sweating a ring on the paper placemat. Mom and Dad arrive on time. Aunt Deb arrives 10 minutes late with a face like she's doing rescue work. Tyler slips in, his winter hat still on his head. Ground rules, I say. We don't talk in circles. We don't interrupt. We leave with either an agreement or a boundary. Dad's voice is gravel, but not sharp. Let's hear it. I lay the printed calendar invite on the table, then the screenshots. This is what happened, I say. You scheduled Christmas at my place without asking. When I said no, you changed the invite to say I'd said yes. You arrived hungry and empty-handed and expected me to feed you. That isn't hosting. That's conscription. Everyone was overwhelmed, Mom starts, her hands worrying a napkin into confetti. Then say that, I say. Ask for help. Ask one person for one thing. Don't assign me an event because you didn't plan. Aunt Deb leans back. You humiliated us in the hallway. I closed my door, I say. I offered to buy Grandma tea. I told you where to get food. That was the help I had. You should have told us earlier, Dad says, before there was momentum. I did, I say, and slide across the printed comment from the calendar. I have not agreed to host. The event at my apartment is canceled. Time stamped. Date stamped. Names on it. Tyler's mouth twitches. It looks like he's swallowing a laugh he shouldn't swallow. We were hungry, he says, half lame. Being hungry isn't a crime, I say. Showing up uninvited and empty-handed to someone else's house and demanding to be fed is a crime against the person you supposedly love. Ray sips her Coke. The carbonation hisses like a tiny applause. Here are my terms, I say, sliding the paper across. If I host anything, we use this. If you don't want to use this, I don't host. If you violate it mid-event, I end the event. Mom stares at the paper. Dad stares at me. Aunt Deb stares at the ceiling like the tiles are going to intervene. You're making this transactional, Mom whispers. It's always been transactional, I say. You just preferred the transactions to be invisible and paid by me. Aunt Deb's voice gets a golden edge. We don't need your lists and rules. We've done Christmas for 30 years without contracts. You've done Christmas by drafting labor from whoever looked the most capable, I say, soft. I'm rewriting my end. You can write yours however you want. Dad clears his throat. What if we rotate houses then? He says like he's building a compromise with blocks he knows. Everyone takes a turn. Rotating houses is fine, I say. Rotating labor is the point. I slide a small laminated card out of my bag. Yes, laminated. Ray brought her laminator over like a banner. It's a QR code that links to a free potluck sign-up I made. Rolls, dishes, cleanup shifts, a field for money for groceries or rentals. If you want to eat at my place, we use this. If you want to eat somewhere else, do whatever you want. I'll bring a salad if I say yes. Aunt Deb bristles. You're so legalistic. Specificity isn't legalism, Ray says quietly. It's respect. Mom folds the paper carefully along the line. I expected tears. I get something like thought. I didn't know, she says, and I believe her if I tilt my head. I didn't know saying yes to Aunt Deb meant you couldn't say no to me. It's not about Aunt Deb, I say. And it is, but it's also about everyone. It's about not asking me. It's about the sentence that begins, you will, instead of, can you? Dad exhales. He looks older than in December. Fine, he says, not generous, but not cruel. We'll use the sign-up. Aunt Deb opens her mouth, closes it, opens it again. I don't like this, she says. It makes me feel like a guest in my own family. I nod. Good, I say. That's the point. Guests behave better than owners. We leave it there, not solved, shaped. At home, I make soup with the chicken bones I froze. I stir in orzo. The kitchen fogs the windows. I text Grandma. Tea next week? She sends a heart like a young person. On my whiteboard, under yes, I add terms exist. Under no, I add feeding 20 on one loaf. Bread class graduates in March with a potluck where everyone brings their best loaf. Mine scores clean and opens where I told it to. It feels like a small miracle earned by doing the same small thing at the same time for days. Forge, yes, we see her sometimes in the shop between classes. She shares space with the bakery once a month for a materials mingle. Walks by, sniffing. You stopped poking it, she says. Look at that spring. I set terms, I say, and she doesn't need the story. When do I get invited to dinner? Ray says later, pinching the crust to hear it crack. When you are SVP, I say. When you bring something better than vibes. She grins. I'll bring a salad. Bring butter, I say. Real butter. The good one. We laugh. It's easy. The table is small and strong. The terms hold. In April, Aunt Deb hosts Easter. She sends a group text. Sign-up sheet attached. Don't arrive early. I stare at it too long, like it's a dog walking on two legs. It's not perfect, but it stands. At 12:02 on the day, I show up with deviled eggs I made the night before, sprinkled with smoked paprika and chopped chives because I like the way it looks like a tiny field. Aunt Deb opens the door, breathless but smiling for real. The table is set. There's a list taped inside a cabinet, her handwriting, spiky and intent. Assignments, times, cleanup crews. There's a rental receipt from the party store stuck to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a lemon wedge. The receipt makes me irrationally, disproportionately happy. Look at us, she says, a little rueful. Grown-ups with clipboards. It's a good look on you, I say, and I mean it. When the ham comes out, there's a moment where everything feels like the kind of family people write about. Someone pouring water in glasses, someone laughing not at anyone, a child dropping a spoon and not getting yelled at for it. Between bites, Mom leans over. We're thinking of doing a family therapy session, she says, the words like crossing a creek on rocks you don't yet trust. Dr. Walden said she has a Tuesday opening. I'll come, I say. With you, not for you. She nods. Her eyes are dry and present. Okay. In the session, Doctor. Walden draws 3 concentric circles on a yellow pad. Roles you learned, she says, pointing to the center. Roles you want, she says, pointing to the middle. Roles you'll accept, she says, pointing to the outside. They won't overlap perfectly, but you'll find a map. Dad says, I thought traditions keep people close. I say, Traditions that assign labor without consent keep women tired and men thanked. He blinks, then nods once, a small hinge moving. Tyler says, "I'll bring a dish to the next thing," like a boy who just learned he can buy eggs at the store. Aunt Deb does not come to therapy. That's fine. She texts me a link to a potluck calculator that tells you how many pounds of potatoes you need for 20 people. We're finding our tools in different stores. In May, I get an email from a local community center asking if I'll teach a Saturday workshop, hosting without burnout. I laugh out loud. Who am I? A guru? Then remember the blank spaces on my whiteboard that I filled in with yes and no like a language lesson. I say yes if Ray co-teaches. We make a handout with a 3-column chart. Ask, assign, assume. We practice saying, "I'm not available to host" out loud with strangers who look relieved to be practicing something no one taught them. I bring a loaf to share. I watch people cut careful slices with a plastic knife, like they're trying not to offend the crumb. We spend 10 minutes on the sentence, "I need you to bring X by Y time." People write it down like secret code. In June, I get a new neighbor, Elliot, the environmental engineer I see sometimes at city meetings, the one with the precise brain and soft voice. He carries a plant into the hallway like a baby. We talk about bikes. The plant is a pothos that will not die no matter what he does to it. We water each other's when we're out of town. It's not a romance. It's a neighborliness that feels like proof we live somewhere people remember how to knock. In August, Grandma turns 89. We throw a small tea for her at Gino's because they have a kettle, and because the back room feels like a lucky charm. She eats a scone and tells a story about the year a turkey fell on the floor. No one remembers yelling then the way we remember yelling now. Memory is kind to the dead and rough on the living. I try to be kind to both. In September, Dad asks me to look over a contract for the garage's roof repair. I read it and circle a line in red, "Payment upon substantial completion." "Don't pay it all up front," I say. "Hold 10% until the final inspection." He nods. He doesn't tell me I'm bossy. He doesn't call me legalistic. He calls the roofer and uses my line. It's a small thing, but it doesn't feel small. In October, Aunt Deb texts, "We booked a community room for Thanksgiving. Sign-up link live." She added cleanup crews. She assigned Uncle Pete more than ice. I laugh in my kitchen and send her a thumbs up because sometimes an emoji is enough. In November, Mom asks if I'll host one small thing. A cookie afternoon with just her and Grandma. She asks 2 weeks ahead. She offers to bring half the ingredients and a broom. She signs up on my sheet, sugar plus butter plus clean counters. I say yes. We bake butter cookies in my small oven. Grandma sits at the table and presses a fork into each ball of dough to make a crosshatch. Mom hums. I bring out the good butter Ray bought, and we eat cookies warm enough to burn our fingers. It is ordinary. It is wealth. December arrives and that way it does. Too much and somehow still lean. My whiteboard says yes, Friendsmas, Ray's parents, Grandma T. No. Everyone come here. I make stationery with my sign-up QR and a small loaf stamped in the corner because the bakery sold me a stamp with a wheat stalk on it, and I am that person now. On the 18th, Aunt Deb sends a real invitation. Christmas brunch at Deb's, 10 to 1. Rotate to Vanessa's for games if you want after. The description says, no pressure. Bring what you promised. Leave on time. I RSVP. Yes for brunch, no for games. I offer waffles. She assigns me syrup and fruit instead because her waffle iron is sacred and I respect that. Under the printed invite on my fridge, I tape last year's screenshot where my address glows like a warning. Not to gloat. To remember. To know what it took to move from one picture to the other. On the night before, I fold dough twice and leave it in the fridge. I make syrup from scratch because the store kind tastes like corn and the real kind tastes like trees. I put out the sign up on my counter even though no one needs to see it. It's my flag. Christmas Day, I show up at Aunt Deb's at 10:02 with 2 bottles of syrup, a bowl of strawberries, a small loaf from yesterday. The house smells like cinnamon and coffee. The kids are sticky. The adults are not yelling. There's a list on the counter with check marks next to things humans actually did. Aunt Deb hugs me. "I hated you for a whole day in February," she says into my shoulder, words muffled by the hug. "And then I realized I hated that you were right." I laugh into her cardigan. "I wasn't trying to be right." "I know," she says. "You were trying to be home." We stack plates. We make waffles. People leave at 1:09 and don't linger in that needy way that makes the sink feel like punishment. I help Aunt Deb put the chairs away. She hands me back my syrup bottles, washed. I hold one up and read the label. Maple, grade B, dark robust. I like the words. I like how they are honest, dark, robust, not pretending to be light. On my way home, I stop at Mr. Rivas's to buy milk. He's reading a magazine with a picture of a towering Panettone on the cover. He looks up, eyes crinkling. "How is the table?" "Proper," I say. He nods, pleased. "How's your folding?" "Better," I say. "Less poking." He laughs. "You're learning." He bags my milk and throws in a tangerine. "For sweetness." I set the tangerine on my entry table beside the Dutch oven lid that sits there like a moon. I cut a slice of yesterday's bread. Butter melts into it the way it only does when a day is both over and exactly the right size. I text Ray. "Best brunch." We did it. She sends back 15 bread emojis and 1 gold star. I put the receipts folder back on the shelf. Not to forget it. To know I can pull it down when I need it. A bridge you keep, but don't live under. 1 year to the day after the hallway scene, sun spills across my floors through the thin winter light. My apartment smells like cinnamon peels and lemon oil because I wiped the table like an apology to the wood. The Dutch oven hums on a low flame. The bread inside snaps from heat like a shell finding its shape. At 11 a.m., I text Grandma. "Tea at 2?" She sends back yes with a string of teacup emojis she must have learned from a grandchild. I text Mom the recipe for the tahini lemon dressing she liked at Thanksgiving, with exact measurements because specifics are kindness, not control. Ray arrives at 2:05 with a salad and a story about a woman at Trader Joe's who cried next to the peppermint bark because grief is weird in fluorescent light. We make tea. We wait for the kettle to sing. We tie our hair back. We breathe. Grandma sits on the couch and asks to hold my bread knife because she used to collect knives and I didn't know that. She tests the balance. She cuts the first slice. It's not perfect. It tears a little. She doesn't apologize. She hands the torn piece to me like a sacrament for people who got through something and can name it. At 3:17, someone knocks. It's not my family. It's Elliot with a pothos cutting and a small jar of honey from a friend's rooftop hive. He looks a little shy. "I thought you might want to try honey on bread," he says, as if this idea might get him kicked out of a club. "Come in," I say. I set the honey on the table. It's dark, robust. We taste it on our fingers like children. It tastes like flowers trying to be trees. At 5:30, after tea and salad and too many cookies, Grandma dozes and Ray starts washing dishes because she knows where everything goes. I lean against the counter and watch light curl around the bowls. My house feels small and good. Not perfect. Not staged. Real. My phone buzzes at 6:04. A text from Aunt Deb. "Thank you for yesterday. Sign up worked. Dishwasher died. Buying a new one this week because I'm not a martyr." A photo of her with a dish towel over one shoulder and a grin like a person who has met herself and is not apologizing. At 6:20, Mom sends a photo of their table. A simple dinner, just them, 2 bowls of soup and a loaf of bread so perfectly imperfect I know she made it. Your father helped fold, she writes. Don't poke it, added like a joke and a vow. At 8:11, Tyler texts, I made potatoes, and they didn't suck. A photo of potatoes that look like effort and salt. I brought something to the potluck. It felt good. I walk to my whiteboard and erase. No unannounced arrive and eat and write. No, assign without ask because specificity evolves. Under yes, I add teach, not rescue, and put a check mark next to Grandma T like it's a scavenger hunt and the prize is dignity. Before bed, I pull last year's printed invite from the receipts folder. I slide it into the welded box Ray helped me make months ago in Forge's open studio night. Yes, we went back. No, I didn't think I'd be a person who owned a welding helmet. The box holds odd things now. A $2 bill someone taped to a card at bread class with for luck. The laminated QR sign-up. The first marble from Dr. Nayar. The sticky note that says 1 roasted chicken. Bread practice in navy ink. The lid shuts with a sound like agreements that hold. I stand at my window and look at the city hum. People carrying pies through lobbies. Buses breathing at red lights. A couple arguing quietly and touching each other's sleeves like they've learned how to fight without breaking. The reflection shows a room that is not a venue, not a community center, not a stage. A home. An invitation is a question. A boundary is an answer. A family is the people who can hold both without breaking the door. I think of the hallway last December, my hand on the lock. I think of Mr. Rivas with his neat citrus pyramids, of Ray with cocoa dust on her cuffs, of Grandma with the knife balanced just so. I think of Aunt Deb's list on the inside of the cabinet and Dad circling substantial completion with my red pen. I think of Tyler's potatoes. The people I love are not different species now. We are the same people with slightly better tools. I wash the Dutch oven and leave it on the stove because I like how it looks like potential. I turn off the light. The kitchen is a quiet animal sleeping where it feels safe. In the dark, the steel rim catches the last light and holds it for a beat longer than it should. I sleep with the window cracked. The air smells like someone's chimney, and the faint sweetness of the honey Elliot left. The city murmurs. Somewhere, a timer dings. Somewhere else, a door closes gently. In here, proof rises. Not because I forced it, because I made room and stopped poking. Because I asked and answered and folded and waited. Because this table is mine, and every chair at it is earned by those who RSVP with more than vibes.